Hi, I'm Dan Mangrew with your Newsmax TV Money Report. Today we have a special interview with the president of Euro-Pacific Capital, author of the best-selling book Crash Proof: How to Profit from the Coming Economic Collapse, and potential U.S. Senate candidate Peter Schiff. Peter, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us today.
Oh, you're welcome.
It's certainly no secret that you believe that the U.S. economy has been a drag on the global economy. And what most of our readers want to know is there anything that we can do to help save the U.S. economy, or is at this point doom simply inevitable?
No, I mean, we're going to go through a serious retrenchment and a very long period of economic atonement for the sins of the past. But it's not hopeless. I mean, the U.S. economy can rebound. Capitalism is very dynamic. We just have to unleash it. We just need to get the government out of the way, and we need to have the government stop stimulating the problem. You know, what the government is doing now with extra deficit spending, by keeping interest rates artificially low, by encouraging still more debt and more consumption, the government is helping us dig the hole deeper rather than allowing the market to fill it back up.
Now, one of the phenomena that you speak often of is decoupling, and that's going on separating the U.S. from the global economy. Can you explain further on this?
Well, sure. There's a theory out there that all the world's nations are coupled like a train, and that the U.S. is the locomotive and the rest of the world, is pulled along behind us, and that if the U.S. Engine derails, that we take down the rest of the world. I don't think that's true. I think we have it in reverse. I think the world represents the engine, and the United States represents the caboose. And I think the world has been expending a lot of energy dragging the American caboose behind. And I think if the world can really decouple the United States, then the rest of the trains will move faster. And the reason I say we're the caboose is because we are taking more out of the global economic pot than we put in. We consume more than we produce, and we borrow more than we save. Therefore, the rest of the world is actually delivering a subsidy to the American economy. Because they loan us so much money, there's less capital available within their own countries. There's less money available for business investment overseas because so much of the money is loaned to Americans to grow our government and to consume. And because the world delivers so much merchandise, so many resources, so many consumer products to America, the rest of the world has to get by with less. If they didn't send us so much of what they produced, more of these products would be available for foreigners, and their standard of living would rise.
Now, with the subsidy that international countries, you say, are giving to the U.S. Because of U.S. increased consumption and increased borrowing, is that what you feel is driving the current bull run?
Well, I think the bull run is, number one, being driven by the fact that stocks fell far too much globally in 2008. Stocks really got insanely cheap. It was a fire sale. So what we're doing now is making up that ground. We're recovering from those ridiculously low prices. Also, I think that as the forced sales are over, you don't have all the margin calls and all the redemptions. That's taking the selling pressure off of the market. And I think people are starting to realize that the global economy is not as in bad shape as people feared. This is not going to be a worldwide global depression. And so you're starting to see more money move into the market, better valuations on stocks. And I also think people are cognizant of the risk of inflation, that central banks all around the world are printing too much money, and that while cash was king in 2008, cash is trash in 2009 because nothing suffers like cash and, of course, long-term bonds from inflation. So I think investors around the world are expressing a desire to get out of cash, out of bonds, and to own something more tangible like common equity.
Now, even though some folks are bearish on the U.S. market, and whether you call this market a bear rally, a bull trap, whatever the name, you still have to look at a Dow up 40%, an S&P up over 45%, and a NASDAQ up over 50% from the March 2009 lows. Are you currently investing or inside U.S. stocks for the short term, or are you just completely sitting out of this one?
No, I mean, we're still in foreign stocks. We were invested in 2008, and my accounts went down along with the markets in 2008. And of course, we're enjoying a very brisk rebound. The U.S. markets are up. In general, the foreign markets are up 50% to 100% more. Of course, they were a little bit weaker in 2008. But if you take 2008 and 2009 together, people who are invested outside the United States are in far better shape than the people who invested inside the United States, and I expect that to continue. But at some point, I do expect the bear market rally in U.S. stocks to come to an end, probably as the dollar continues to make new lows and we maybe bring on a bit of a currency crisis, and as the dollar weakening sets off heightened fears of inflation, causes bond prices to fall more rapidly than they have been, meaning a bigger spike up in interest rates. I think that is going to cause the stock market in the U.S. To roll over and head back down. Whether we make a new low or not, it's hard to say. I think there's a good chance that we could. The other question would be, how would a renewed weakness in U.S. stocks affect global markets?
On that note, when do you think we could see I would say, the return of the bear market?
Well, I think the bear market has been here since 2000, right? So I don't think we never left it. I think the bull move that we had between 2003 maybe and 2007 was a counter trend rally within a bear market. I think the bear market is still here. I think it's going to be with us for another 5 or 10 years. I don't think people are going to make any real money in U.S. stocks. I think even if U.S. stocks manage to gain nominally over the next 5 or 10 years, adjusted for inflation, they will lose value. And if you look at gold, if you look at U.S. stocks and price them in gold, I expect U.S. stocks to lose a considerable amount of value in terms of gold over the years, even in terms of other currencies like the euro, the Japanese yen, or Swiss franc, or Australian, Canadian dollar. I think U.S. stocks will lose considerable value in other currencies. The only way that we might not lose a lot of value in dollars is because the dollar itself loses even more value than stocks.
Now, on the topic of inflation and even hyperinflation, inflation opponents say that there's over $60 trillion of U.S.-denominated debt globally, and that the couple trillion that the Fed has printed doesn't even begin to make an impact. With dollar-denominated debt so large, is massive inflation or hyperinflation, is it possible in the short term?
Well, what's the short term? I mean,
let's say within the next 2 to 3 years.
Well, I don't think we'll have hyperinflation over the next 2 to 3 years, and by that I mean, Weimar Republic wheelbarrow, Zimbabwe style. That might take another 5 or 10 years to fully play out. That would be a worst-case scenario. But I certainly think we can see high inflation over the next 2 to 3 years. We can see double-digit inflation over the next 2 to 3 years. Whether it turns into hyperinflation depends on how the government reacts to that higher inflation.
Shifting gears for a moment, you've set up an exploratory committee for a potential U.S. Senate run. You've seen a huge swell of grassroots support. When will you decide to throw your hat in the ring officially?
Well, I mean, I am giving it very, very serious consideration. I am, very strongly leaning in the direction of becoming a candidate. So I just want to look at a few more factors, look at the contributions that are coming in, look at the kind of support that I have, and then decide to make it official. But it is no small sacrifice on my part. I mean, to actually win, and I'm not going to run, just for an exercise. I want to actually run to win, and so it's going to take a lot of effort on my part. It's going to require a lot of my time. It's going to require money, and so it's a sacrifice to do it. But it's not something that a sacrifice that I'm unwilling to make. I do think that the cause is worth fighting for, that the cause of liberty and freedom, and to try to protect this country and to restore it to an economically viable nation. I think if we do not alter the course that we're on, and we do not send somebody to Congress that actually understands how we got into this mess and how we're making it worse, I think the future is very bleak for America. And to try to help avoid that bleak future, that's why I would want to go to Congress.
Now, your likely opponent would be incumbent U.S. Senator Chris Dodd, the man who took large amounts of campaign contributions from AIG, wrote the bill for AIG bailouts, whose wife sits on the board of directors of an AIG subsidiary, and who took a sweetheart mortgage from Countrywide. Where did Dodd go wrong?
Well, Chris Dodd, unfortunately, has been corrupted, I believe, by the political system. I mean, he's been in Washington his whole life. He's been 30 years in the Senate. He was 6 years in the House of Representatives. He went to Congress when he was 30 years old. Before that, he was in law school, and I think he was in the military for a couple of years. He's never actually worked in the private market. He's never run a business. He's never employed anybody. He's never